Delta dawn. New Zealand wakes up in lockdown and we now have 10 cases in the community, with 3 more confirmed since 1 p.m.
While some Kiwis enjoyed their last chance to party, a sobering message from Dr Bloomfield warning the outbreak could swell to 120 cases.
And as anti-vaxxers protested against the lockdown, police showed they'll be making sure people follow the rules. Tēnā tātou katoa. It's Delta and the outbreak is growing fast. We now have 10 confirmed cases in the cluster. We just learned that 3 more people have tested positive since the 1 p.m. update, and more details on them will be released tomorrow. 4 of the cases from one flat in Auckland's North Shore are all in their 20s. One of the people living there was a vaccinated nurse at Auckland Hospital. She went to work while infectious. Another was a teacher at Auckland's Avondale College. Now, all of its almost 3,000 students are considered close contacts. And there are 2 more key locations of interest. On Sunday, one of the flatmates went to church in Freeman's Bay. They also went out to party the night before at Sky City. Dr Ashley Bloomfield is warning the cluster could grow to between 50 and 120 cases. Well, there's still no confirmed link to the border. We now know that the genome is linked to the New South Wales outbreak. A fresh warning of how dangerous Delta is from there today, with the Australian state recording 633 new cases. Here's Michael Morrow.
Amid a community outbreak of the Delta variant, a scramble to get tested.
Better be safe than sorry, right?
Been here probably about 2.5 hours.
Had a cough since Saturday.
120, so that's just giving people the sense of the scale here.
We have 7 cases so far. They are the tradesman from Devonport, case A, his colleague, case B, 3 flatmates, including a 21-year-old nurse at Auckland Hospital, a teacher from Avondale College. Now all its students need to isolate and get tested. Another flatmate and 2 of their friends are also in the cluster. One of them was at the Sky City Casino on Saturday night and then on Sunday morning attended a service held at the Auckland Central Church of Christ in Freeman's Bay.
This is a worst case scenario in terms of the possibility for Delta to spread.
The nurse worked on Ward 65 at Auckland Hospital, where DHB bosses have told staff they are concerned about a hospital outbreak. But a visitor to that ward yesterday says he's confused, as no one has been in touch.
I scanned into Ward 65 with my COVID app, and no one's made contact with me, which I thought that I would have been phoned up at 8 o'clock this morning or earlier.
Chris has spent the day trying to call Healthline.
Phone line just cuts out, gone, just clicks off your phone.
Staff and patients are being tested at the hospital. The ministry says they'll contact other affected people, including those who are discharged, when they can. We are learning more about where the virus, confirmed as the Delta variant, came from.
Our case has originated in Australia. And now the job we have is to work through how and when it got here.
There are 2 options: an infection control failure at one of our MIQ hotels where there has been 3 positive cases from Sydney, or we didn't shut off to New South Wales quick enough. Their outbreak started on June 16. We paused the bubble with New South Wales on June 22. At that point, it had 21 active community cases.
It is looking like that was a mistake, that we were too lax with allowing people to return from New South Wales.
It was a gamble, and it would seem at the moment most likely that gamble has not paid off. In fact, that gamble has backfired on us.
But the Prime Minister says we acted swiftly when the outbreak began in Sydney and did require pre-departure tests. Regardless, passenger details are now being checked.
Customs is already drawing down manifests.
That could mean needing to track down and possibly test hundreds of passengers.
Michael joins us now. Michael, what do we know about these new cases that have tested positive this afternoon?
Mike, the Minister's office has just confirmed to me that there are 3 new community cases of the Delta variant in New Zealand tonight. So that brings the total number of COVID cases in the community in New Zealand to 10. Now, we don't know who these people are or how exactly they are linked to the other people in that cluster, but we will find out more information tomorrow.
And Michael, there have been some more significant locations of interest announced.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. And these locations of interest are significant purely because of the sheer number of people who may have visited these locations. So listen to this. On a Friday night, the Sweatshop Brew Bar, there's also Bar 101, and someone visited Denny's in the CBD between 1 and 1:30 a.m. On Saturday, there's Pack and Save on Wido Road, and on Monday there were 2 separate trips to the Birkenhead Countdown and also later that day to the Warehouse in New Lynn. Now, of course, all of these details are on our website and are up on the Ministry of Health website. And if people have visited those locations where there would have been a lot of people, make sure you call Healthline, get a test and stay at home.
Michael, thank you.
As you heard, a 25-year-old teacher at Avondale College, our third biggest school, is among those confirmed COVID cases today. Health correspondent Lucy Warhurst is outside Avondale College and joins us now. Lucy, what's the advice to students and parents?
Well, just to put this into context, this is the third largest secondary school in the country with 2,760 pupils, each and every one of them considered a close contact. Now, the advice is that they need to self-isolate for 14 days until at least the 31st of August, even if the alert level changes. They'll need to get tested both immediately on the 23rd of August and the 29th of August. And they'll need to watch out for symptoms. If they or anyone in their household gets sick or cold or flu-like symptoms, they will need to get tested again. So that self-isolation remains the same regardless of whether they've been vaccinated or if the alert level changes.
Health correspondent Lucy Warhurst, thank you. To combat Delta, the government is supercharging Alert Level 4, starting with mandatory mask wearing from 11:59 tonight. And as political editor Tova O'Brien reports, if you break the rules, you break the law, and police have already started cracking down.
3, 2, 1. Last night's lockdown countdown, Scarfy style. Dunedin students preparing to be on their best behaviour.
Making the most of it!
Preparing, but not committing until the precise strike of 11:59 p.m.
11:59 from Auntie Cindy.
11:59, we're going to bed.
We're going to take it very seriously for 3 days.
And as sure as day follows night, lockdown follows Delta. The airy Armageddon-esque empty streets of Level 4 are back, replacing the bustle of last night's busy bars and the supermarket scramble for some classic Kiwi necessities.
Give me a few beers and a few essentials.
Need to get my food, pretty much. I'm enjoying an ice cream.
Yeah. It's been more than a year since our last Level 4. COVID was scary then. Now that we're dealing with Delta, it's terrifying. Terrifying, but beatable.
Level 4 restrictions are there to protect everyone and to make this lockdown as short as possible.
To keep it as short as possible, Level 4 is being supercharged. From 11:50 tonight, everyone over 12 years old must wear a mask when visiting or working in essential services. Places like supermarkets, pharmacies, petrol stations, cabs. Also public transport terminals, railway stations, bus stops. Masks are mandatory.
Please take responsibility for yourself and show care to others. You know, wearing a mask is an act of service to the people around you.
And if you don't show that care, you'll have to answer to the mask police. Literally.
A fine for not wearing a mask, and then if there's a direction to wear a mask and there's no reason why they're allowed to decline and they fail to follow that direction, an arrest is theoretically possible.
If you needed further convincing that police mean business, look at failed politician and conspiracy theorist Billy Te Kahika, one of 4 people arrested during an anti-lockdown protest in Auckland.
We just feel like everything's being pushed on to us.
You're either full of lies or full of truth. Simple.
Now get up, tell the truth, have some bloody balls.
Here's the truth, a basic fact. Breaking lockdown rules puts lives at risk. Delta is deadly.
But if we're looking at the tip of the iceberg, and with what we now know as the Delta variant, then, roughly speaking, we might be looking at 100 cases out there at the moment.
And police are taking it deadly serious too. The thin blue line just spread far thicker.
Are you treating this lockdown level 4 as a slightly more souped up version than last year's one?
Absolutely. We see how desperate the situation has become in other places.
So once again, desperate times call for desperate measures.
What I just ask everyone to do is to help us. We will get on top of this if everyone plays their part.
And although this lockdown is different, some things remain the same. COVID may be back, but so is the bear and its little dog too.
Tova, can we expect further tightening and changes to level 4?
Yeah, Mel, some form of mandatory QR scanning seems inevitable. The Cabinet has already discussed it, but it's not such a priority right now, given that most of the places that would be asked to scan into are probably shut down in lockdown. Mandatory mask wearing as well. The Prime Minister's signalled that some form of mandatory mask wearing could trickle down into those lower alert levels, so expect an announcement on that as well. And there could be some changes that make life easier for parents who are also essential workers. At the moment, they can't drop their kids off at school. That is tougher than last year's alert level 4 lockdown. So the Ministry of Education is getting in touch with home-based childcare providers to see if they can buddy up with some of those essential worker families. And I understand that Cabinet will make a call on that on Monday, regardless of any changes or decisions around alert levels. So this is kind of a morphing alert level 4 to keep up with the mutating COVID-19.
Live from Parliament, Tova O'Brien, thank you.
Residents of Coromandel are doing everything in their power to stop their town becoming known as COVID-Mandel. The first confirmed case of Delta spent the weekend in the seaside town, prompting locals to flock to testing centres. Shannon Redstill is there.
All quiet on the quaint streets of Coromandel. As the sun rose, residents were gearing up and nurses were suiting up for the biggest COVID testing drive this town has ever seen.
Can't be too careful.
Oh, it's a little bit scary, but, you know, this is what it is.
By 9 a.m, when the first people were swabbed, there were queues out the gate.
I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, so just hearing the word COVID's around kind of makes you feel a little bit sick.
And it was fear that drove a small group of Manaia locals to block off State Highway 25 last night.
What would be your message to the public?
Stay home, go away.
Police were called to assist the group who wanted to protect Kaumatua and Kuia from batch owners fleeing Auckland, and they had some success.
Police did run a checkpoint in that location and we were able to turn around a large number of vehicles.
Coromandel town is home to 13 of the 23 locations of interest, including the Star and Garter Hotel, which locals say was standing room only on Saturday night to watch the All Blacks test on TV.
The pub was actually quite full that night.
There were a lot of people walking in and out who couldn't get anywhere to sit.
The infected man visited Josie Fraser's Cafe Umu 3 times over the weekend. She says her focus is now on her 2 staff members who are close contacts.
They're upset, more upset for the fact that they have older parents and the contact that they may have had with them.
Both women had 1 dose of the vaccine, as do many people in the area, thanks to a mass vaccination event on Saturday. Close to 300 residents have been tested today, and the ones we spoke to were matter of fact and already looking to the future.
Yeah, it's here now, so we've just got to do what we can and everyone behave and stay in and come get tested.
Being known as COVID-Mandel isn't very cool.
Because nobody wants that.
Well, kia ora, Shannon. So a nervous wait for the residents. When will they get their test results back?
Good evening, Mike. Well, I've been told by the head of the testing centre here that it may be 48 hours before people begin to get their test results back. So a long wait for residents here and a long wait for the country to understand whether Delta has been spreading in Coromandel. And one of the reasons it's going to take longer to get those test results back is simply because of the isolation of this town. We actually watched this afternoon as the day's COVID swabs were driven away. They were heading south to Thames before onto a main centre to be analysed in a lab. And also worth pointing out, there was a large drive today at that testing centre. There's only around 1,700 permanent residents here in Coromandel, and around 300 of them got tested this afternoon, so around almost 20% of the population. A huge effort for a small town.
Tēnā koe, Shannon.
Tens of thousands of COVID vaccinations will have to be rebooked after the rollout was paused. As health correspondent Lucy Warhurst reports, they'll have to wait weeks for a new appointment.
Just as we'd ramped up, vaccinations were shut down to give officials time to put in safety measures.
They've got the right personal protective equipment in place, that the flow is going to work safely for everybody so we don't end up spreading the Delta variant through our clinics.
Vaccinations resume at 8 a.m. tomorrow, but tens of thousands will have missed out. A record 55,000 people were vaccinated yesterday. A similar number would have been cancelled today. They all need to rebook, and that could take weeks. I tried booking today. The earliest I could get was September the 20th.
Really unfortunate. It's really bumpy at the moment. Keep trying.
Meanwhile, Countdown is calling on the government to prioritise supermarket staff for the vaccine. 20-year-old Angus says they're at high risk of exposure.
I see like a couple hundred people every day at least, especially during these peak times. Quite scary sometimes.
The government's looking at ways to get more of us vaccinated. This document from August 5th reveals advice for drive-through vaccination centres, but there are no plans in place.
They had advice early this month that drive-through vaccination might be necessary. That was too little too late.
Drive-through is one option, but there's plenty of other options out working right at the moment.
The Prime Minister is encouraging everyone to get a vaccine as soon as they're able.
To put it bluntly, if you've had the vaccine, you are less likely to catch COVID-19 and much less likely to get sick or die if you do.
The danger of Delta likely to bump up bookings. Lucy Warhurst, Newshub.
And the AM show will interview Dr. Ashley Bloomfield tomorrow at 7:07. As we've seen the stories developing so fast, he's sure to have plenty of new and important information.
So what's different about Delta? The WHO says Delta is faster and fitter than earlier variants. It is 50% more transmissible than Alpha, the previously most contagious variant, and twice as transmissible as the earliest coronavirus. It has a shorter incubation period, 4 days instead of 6, so Delta patients are contagious earlier. That speed means the patients each infect 6 others on average, whereas earlier versions infected 2 to 3 people. Delta's mutation means its hallmark COVID spikes used to invade and infect cells are more effective. Alice Wilkins has more.
If COVID has always been tricky, Delta is the ultimate trickster. Because when it comes to survival of the fittest, it's the mutation that always finds a way to come out on top.
It's still transmitted the same way, it just does it better.
One person infected with the original version of COVID was expected to spread it to 2 to 3 people, while a person who has the Delta variant may infect 5 or 6. This is what it looks like if 5 people have each version of the virus, or say 10. And if all the people who got it from those 10 then pass it on, the devastating difference between the two scenarios starts to become very clear.
We'd say it's an explosive outbreak will happen if someone with this virus goes into the community and no precautions are taken.
Sadly, you don't have to look far for real-life examples of that. Delta, which originated in India late last year, ran rampant through the nation.
And as such, we are classifying this as a variant of concern.
It moved through the UK, delaying their June restriction lifting.
The Delta variant is well on its way to becoming the dominant variant.
And most recently, it's raced against the New South Wales contact tracing system and easily won. The speed at which people become infectious just too quick.
I do have a sister in Melbourne, so when I told her last night that we were going into lockdown, she said, "Welcome to my world."
I'm from California. They're definitely having that surge of that Delta.
That's why now that we have it here, we're hoping to stop it with a lockdown. Professor Michael Baker says all of the measures we have put in place for other outbreaks will still work against this strain. Delta has dominated, but now it's our chance to come out on top. Alice Wilkins, Newshub.
Ingrid's in now, and the North Island copped the rain and the wind today.
That is right, yes, specifically the lower North Island, but the rain and wind warnings have all expired tonight. Napier reached 19 degrees, but overall temperatures were slightly cooler than average. Tomorrow is looking crisp too. I will have all the details right after sport.
Thanks, Ingrid. Now, the South Island has yet to report a community case of the Delta strain, but this latest outbreak has also led to lines outside testing stations and travellers still arriving from Auckland.
In Sydney, it's been more than a month since their lockdown began, but a new warning from officials about where case numbers are heading.
Tonight, experts tell us today's new cases are just the tip of the iceberg.
We asked them how Delta spreads and talked to one man who's already been infected.
I never thought that I would get Delta. It almost killed me.
Project, tonight at 7.
This is a COVID-19 announcement. New Zealand is now at alert level 4. We can stop the spread if we all stay at home in our bubbles. Only leave your house for necessities or to exercise locally. The Delta variant is highly infectious. When out and about, wear a face covering and keep a 2-metre distance. If you have symptoms, call Healthline to get a COVID-19 test. Check locations of interest at covid19.govt.nz. Unite against COVID-19.